Hello and welcome to Access Asia. I'm Delon D'Souza. Coming up, the wife of an American seismologist detained on espionage charges in China demands his immediate release. The NGO working with Youlin Chen's family say his arrest may be linked to a US allegation Beijing secretly conducted nuclear tests. Businesses under pressure in Herat, Afghanistan, with women in the city reluctant to step outside after the Taliban's latest crackdown over violations to the country's dress code. And move over work-life balance and hello, tough love. A growing number of young Japanese start to embrace a work culture some are calling corporate machismo. An American seismologist who studies underground nuclear tests has been held on espionage charges in China for close to 2 years. Youlin Chen was detained while visiting relatives in Beijing. The NGO Global Reach, who's working on behalf of his family, believe the 54-year-old's arrest may be linked to a U.S. allegation China secretly conducted nuclear tests. Youlin Chen's wife says the charges are unfounded and she's demanding his immediate release. For more on this story, we can speak to Kieran Ramsey, a former FBI official and current Chief Investigative Officer of Global Reach. Kieran, thank you for joining us on the program. Beijing is accusing Youlin Chen of being a spy, but what makes you believe that he's being held for his expertise?
Well, look, we know for a fact Youlin Chen is not a political activist, and he is most certainly not a spy. He's a respected seismologist who lives in the Boston area with his wife and son. And in fact, his specialty is detecting nuclear tests through seismic activity. And he's done this research, this type of academic work for years, using very publicly available data and even going so far as to collaborate with scientists in China.
The U.S. President Donald Trump personally brought up Chen's case with the Chinese President Xi Jinping back in May when he visited the country. Do you know what came of that conversation?
Unfortunately, nothing as we can tell, and nothing as the family can tell. So when President Trump brings this up to President Xi in his visit to Beijing, there was great hope behind that. And President Xi assured the President of the United States that he would look into it. Now we have an upcoming visit in September of President Xi to Washington, D.C., and we are, very much looking at that visit and expecting to see some kind of resolution, hopefully before this visit.
Do we know anything about Dr. Chen's condition? Where is he being held? Has his family been able to contact him at all?
This is one of the more troubling aspects of the case, given the fact Dr. Chen has been held for over 600 days, and his family has not had any direct contact with him at all. Actually, for the first 434 days, he was held without any access to an attorney and was interrogated over 100 times. And for viewers in France and the EU and the United States, we all know what that is. That's part of a broader playbook of authoritarian regimes using deceptive techniques, claiming the rule of law. And we know it's arbitrary detention. And under U.S. law, we call it wrongful detention.
Kieran, if this is about hostage diplomacy, what do you think, or who do you think China wants in return?
Well, and that's one of the tough questions to answer. If we knew that, hopefully we could act upon it quickly. But what we do know is this. Again, Dr. Chen is no spy. This is part of that broader playbook. And it's very troubling. And the viewers in France and the EU should take heed of this. The fact that you have an American academic that's being detained now who was collaborating with scientists in China using openly sourced data, that should send a chilling message to researchers everywhere and anywhere thinking about going to China, in fact, to collaborate with them further.
So you're saying that researchers should be wary of collaborating or traveling to China even?
Well, unfortunately, we have a pattern here now with American academics. We've had Dr. Youlin Chen detained for over 600 days. In the last months, we've seen another academic detained in China. And look, we've seen others from France and from the European Union around the world in other countries, unfortunately, fall victim to this, where they are arbitrarily detained. Some kind of espionage label is falsely attached to them. And they are nothing more than academics or journalists or critics of whatever government that takes action against them.
Hopefully this increased media attention on the case will help Dr. Chen's family. Kiran Ramsey, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
My pleasure, sir.
To the latest chipping away of women's freedoms in Afghanistan. The Taliban has defended its latest crackdown in the western city of Herat after dozens were detained by the morality police last month for violating the country's dress code. A stricter enforcement of the rules has now resulted in women only stepping out when necessary. It's a move that started to impact businesses in Herat. Antonia Kerrigan reports.
The covered market of Herat is now a ghost town.
For the past couple of months, there have been virtually no customers in the market. We pay €400 rent for this shop, but now we can't even earn enough to cover the rent.
The women of Herat have a reputation for defiance of repressive Taliban laws, but after a recent crackdown, they have been alienated from public spaces like never before in Afghanistan's third city, to the detriment of the local economy.
The market revolves around women. If there are no women, there is no bazaar.
On the 6th and 7th of June, more than 30 women were arrested for apparently violating a now tightened dress code. Triggering a protest just days later, where the words education, work and freedom were chanted. Words which were met with violent repression. Taliban forces opened fire, killing at least 2 demonstrators according to eyewitness reports. Locals have heeded authorities' warnings not to protest again, and the result is that women in Herat have become slightly more invisible.
Before women were free, they could come here comfortably to do shopping and then go home. There were no restrictions. They could freely take the rickshaw to go around. Now, as the restrictions have been imposed, they cannot go out, so there's no work for us.
In the nearly 5 years since the Taliban's return to power, women have lost almost all access to secondary education, been prevented from returning to civil service jobs, and barred from most NGO work. Meanwhile, a 2023 decree ordered the closure of all beauty salons, some of the only female-run businesses. In public spaces, women have been erased even further. Full face coverings are now the law in most provinces. Women and girls are not legally free to speak or sing in public and must be accompanied by a male chaperone for travel. The result of which measures is that women often stay home for fear of arrest or violence.
Questions are being raised in Bangkok after scores of people were killed when a deadly fire broke out at a live music venue. The pub passed its safety inspection back in April, but tougher regulations in the city only apply to designated entertainment zones, and there's a loophole for restaurants with live music, even if the venue accommodates large numbers. Emily Boyle reports.
It is a tragedy with many precedents. Celebrations turned deadly when a violent fire tore through this Bangkok bar. Experts believe the fire was likely caused by an electrical short circuit in a ceiling air conditioner. Although firefighters arrived within minutes, it was already too late for many of the people still trapped inside.
It was so rapid. We didn't think. There was no way to get out at all. The people who managed to get out were already outside. The people who were inside couldn't get out because we didn't know where the fire exit was.
Thailand's Prime Minister walked through the blackened walls of the Rong Beer pub, where investigators are examining reports that emergency exits may have been blocked, preventing partygoers from escaping the flames.
We believe the fire was caused by negligence. The forensic team will inspect the electrical systems since the building was constructed 53 years ago. We will take a close look at how it was decorated.
Attention has also turned to the highly flammable material and decorations which were fitted to the ceiling, including non-fire retardant acoustic foam, which produced extreme heat and toxic smoke, and plastic decorations which were draped from the ceiling to produce an artificial canopy.
These are modern materials, and bringing them into an old building without a proper safety system creates risk across the board. This is something that urgently needs to be reviewed. Risk needs to be reassessed and every building needs to be upgraded and developed to meet modern safety standards.
The death toll is expected to rise as several victims remain in critical condition. Entertainment venues have suffered several deadly fires in recent years in Thailand, where safety regulations have not always been properly enforced, despite inspections.
To Japan next, where a new generation of office workers is reviving a bygone corporate culture. Around the world, Gen Z has garnered a reputation of being more concerned about their work-life balance, but a growing number of young Japanese are embracing a culture some are calling corporate machismo, a hard-changing, zealous approach to business that some see as key to the country's economic boom. Brian Quinn reports.
At this Tokyo office, morning meetings are anything but sedate. The company's motto, ZOS, is a heavily masculinized abbreviation of the phrase Otsukarasama desu, a recognition and appreciation of exhaustingly hard work. Its young recruits say they've come looking for a challenge and found it.
I can really grow here. They're strict with me and may even get mad at me for the sake of my development.
The hard-charging ethic reflects a desire by many in the Japanese business community to return to the corporate culture they believe helped the country rise from the rubble of World War II to become the world's second-largest economy in the 1980s and 90s. They say the shift to greater focus on work-life balance in recent decades has cost Japanese business its edge, and that there's nothing wrong with a little tough love.
Holding back is not something admirable, it's actually negative. It's better to speak your mind. And yes, when you say what you really think, sometimes it causes friction, but that might be the starting point of innovation.
The company's augmented videos of its morning rallies have become something of a social media phenomenon, an effect it says helps to recruit and retain dedicated employees. It's not without its critics, though, who see it as a reactionary throwback to a toxic culture of overwork best left in the past. By the 2010s, Japan had become notorious for karoshi, death by overwork, leading to reform efforts by the government and large firms. But the problem persists. Last year saw a new record of government compensation for deaths and illnesses related to overwork.
That's it for this edition of Access Asia. From all of us on the team, thank you very much for watching.